Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 111 in an ongoing series of live broadcasts created for folks with a growth mindset or for those who'd like to create one. It's an opportunity to play with new ideas, new concepts, and try on new mindsets. So if you take just a moment and click share just at the bottom of this video and invite your friends, your colleagues to join the community. The more voices in the conversation, the richer it is. Wow. So I'm noticing a deep sense of not knowing, right? And I think that's what's come up for me a lot in this last week. You know, right now we simply don't know. We don't know how long these challenging times are going to last. We don't know how we or our families or our friends or businesses or the economy will be impacted. Not a clue. In fact, just this morning through the grapevine, through the long way around, we heard that folks who were just at our anniversary party and who went walking with recently had both tested positive and since recovered from COVID-19. So we really, I'm just really struck by how much we don't know the scope of what's going on. But that's the opportunity that we have to play with, right? And this is the quote that came up for today. Do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. I'm what I'm noticing is as leaders, and I think when times are challenging like this, we are all leaders because we're all trying to craft our own way, our own path, our own way of getting through this. So as leaders in these challenging times, this lack of knowing is not an excuse. It's not permission to get off easy or to stop short or to give anything less than our best. And that's what comes up for me with this quote. Do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. And I know Maya Angelou, when she originally wrote this line, was not thinking about a global pandemic. But here's what I do know. Every day we have more information. And the more we know, the better we can do. When we face these challenging times by cataloging all that we don't know and fixating on everything that we're clueless about, we cheat ourselves and those around us, particularly those we lead, out of our power to navigate and actually actively create a new normal. Part of what I talked about on, I've started doing these open community Zoom calls on Fridays called Refresh Friday. And if you're interested, just send me a private message and I'll make sure that you get on the list to get an email or get the link for that. With Zoom's new security, it's good to have a link. But one of the things we talked about on Friday was the idea that the surest way to predict the future is to create it. That goes back to a line from Alan Kay back in the 1970s when the Atari was first marketed. And it comes up again for here. The best way to predict the future is to invent it, and invent from what you know. And then as you know more, do more and do better. And this is important energy for us to take into navigating week number X of this pandemic. What a cool opportunity. The best way to predict the future is to invent it, to create our next, to design our new normal. Elaine asked me yesterday, as soon as we were falling asleep, what would make this time that we have more useful? And I take that as an opportunity to create. And I've been putting a lot of effort and thought into what I want to create out of this time, what I want to create for the other side of this. So my mind spins a lot when I get here. And I'm still sifting through what I want my new normal to look like going forward. I mean, the normal now, I communicate with folks all around the globe through Zoom and through live broadcasts already. I've been doing this for 13 years, coaching people around the globe using Skype and now Zoom. And so on one hand, it's not a lot of difference for me. On the other hand, there's a lot of new normal to be created, because companies are going to be working differently and people are going to be working differently. And as we start to create what's next, there'll be new opportunities. So Len, you asked a great question. Distinguish between I don't know what I don't know, the unknown. No, sorry, I don't want to go back and make it political. I know what I don't know. So the conscious, the areas of conscious incompetence, what I know that I don't know. I think we have to respond, Len, to either, because things surface. You know, if you go back to her quote, do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better, doesn't distinguish between the unknown unknowns and the known unknowns. So it's interesting. We have to, I think this leans towards the idea of agility. We have to be agile enough to respond to what comes. Yeah, and Mary Virginia, you're right. Fear is a powerful motivator. Some don't want to know better to do better. You know, ignorance is bliss, right? The knowing can feel risky. Yeah, and I get that. Once you can't put the genie back in the bottle, right? Once we know, we have to be reactive, preferably responsive to whatever it is we know. So sometimes it's easier to avoid knowing. You know, I think in the era of the 24-hour news cycle, you know, you can disconnect yourself from the news flow, but you still have people in community around you. Unless you're all off the grid, how do we stem the tide of knowing? Yeah, I think it's also important to be selective about what we let in, and yet whatever comes in, we have to be willing to navigate and respond to. And so I think you're right on track. Fear is a powerful motivator. Some people don't want to know better. So it's very interesting. Knowing can feel risky. Wow, wait, I'm getting Dwayne's and Mary Virginia. Did you post the same thing? Well, clearly the technology is not all it's cracked up to be. But the point is, recapture. What's coming up, Mary Virginia and Dwayne and Len, is a lot about the resiliency and the agility to respond to what comes up. I think we've got a tremendous amount of not knowing right now that changes by the moment. And in fact, a lot of stuff that we do think we know, not so much. So where is the opportunity for us to create in all this, regardless of what we know and don't know? There's the whole side of our world where we're taking in information, and then there's the side where we're acting upon what's present. And I think what I'm leaning towards is, regardless of what we know and don't know, this is the opportunity for us to start creating and start fantasizing about what we want our worlds to look like on the other side of this. And I'm in the early stages of figuring that out. And the conversation with so many clients has been, what do you want this organization, this company, this community, this team, this shop to look like on the other side? And beginning to have those conversations, to fantasize about it, to think it through. Thanks, Phil. But that's an important piece. What do you want to see created? What do you want your next to look like? Right? As you begin to know better and aim to do better, what do you want to be doing? It's less about what we know right now and more about what we want to create. So I think my attention this week, in the downtime that's being created, is I want to get a better handle on what I want my world to look like, what I want my new normal to be on the other side of this. And I have no idea what that's going to be. I don't know. I don't know what's possible. But then again, I've never let that stop me. But what's really intriguing for me is I don't know what I want it to be. This is one of those weird playgrounds where anything is possible. If I were going to recreate my business, knowing what I know now, would I recreate the business that was in January on the other side of this? And the answer is no. There are a lot of things I would do differently. But now the question is, which ones will I do differently? What do I want to see different? Do I want to change who I'm working with? Do I want to change the way I'm working? Do I want to change who I'm serving? Do I want to change the format of how I work with folks? I have the opportunity to play with all of that. I'm sort of, what I realize is I'm beginning to approach this as there are no rules. I get to start shaping the future the way I want it to look. And so what's coming up is, yeah, on one hand, that's really exciting. On the other hand, that's kind of terrifying. You know, the complete open possibility. Wow, what the hell is it going to be? So now is the time to ponder strategically versus responding tactically. Oh my God, Len, yes. This is a chance for the playground to figure out what it is that you want, to start creating and imagining and envisioning, not to actually start going into the how, painfully and detailed into the how and the strategic, and the tactical action. Yeah, now's the time to ponder strategically versus responding tactically. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Mary Virginia, it is an evolving situation. And I think that's the key. The future is created by the now. You know, we talked a lot on Friday and the last couple of calls about those morning routines and mindfulness and being intentional and attentional. And I think that bears being a current conversation every time. So what are you doing to give yourself the space to think? What are you doing in terms of mindfulness and any meditative practice? What are you doing to create space to think and to feel? We have a tendency, particularly in the North American culture, to plow forward without feeling, without thinking, and just do. We've been given an external pause. How are you using that? Len, I really appreciate that comment, and I want to go back and put it up again. It's the time to ponder strategically versus respond tactically. Yeah, thank you, Len. I think that captures it beautifully. And one thing I know is when it's captured perfectly, stop. So I'm going to leave it right there. So thank you, and I really appreciate you folks joining these conversations and being part of the conversation afterwards in the private Mindset Mondays Facebook group. That's at facebook.com/groups/Mindset Monday. Please join in. And also, don't forget that I'm doing every Friday, doing the Refresh Fridays call. And that again is every Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT. And it's an open call. Please, if you aren't getting notifications and emails, send me a private message. I'll make sure that you're getting those emails. And so for now, this is the end of episode 111. So thank you for being part of this ongoing series. And between now and next week, what mindset will you choose?